Possiamo iniziare? Bene, benvenuti, welcome, buon pomeriggio o good morning, good evening here in Milan, good morning in New York City, right? So, I'm Arturo Ziliani. I must speak English, but my English is very, very bad. So I asked to Arianna, our winemaker and press office, right? Of our winery, Guido Berlucchi. This afternoon, we taste 3 products that are 61 Brut, 61 Rosé, 2 wines non-vintage, and the last wine is Nature 2012. It's a vintage Franciacorta wine. But first, it's important to you, also to Italian people, to know something about history of our winery, Berlucchi. And for this, I asked to Arianna to help me. So, Arianna, speak now.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Arturo. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you, New York, for being connected. I'll sit down now. Today we're gonna have an overview of the Berlucchi winery and of the Franciacorta territory. And after that, I'll leave the word to Arturo for the description of the wine we're gonna taste. And also New York, if you are gonna have any questions, you can send them through WhatsApp. And in the end, we'll have 10 minutes for answering all of your questions. So, first of all, welcome to our winery, that is Guido Berlucchi Winery. Our winery started with a fortunate encounter between 2 men, Guido Berlucchi, who of course gave the name to the estate, and Franco Ziliani. Guido Berlucchi was a nobleman of the Franciacorta area. He owned a palace, Palazzo Lana, and some vineyards. And with those vineyards, he was producing a white still wine. In fact, in the area, there was no sparkling wine production until Guido Berlucchi and Franco Ziliani together had the idea of making this sort of experiment. So the 2 of them met in 1955, and that was because Guido Berlucchi, with the production of this still wine he was trying to make, was having some issues, some problems. So he asked for the help of this young winemaker, Franco Ziliani, and invited him to meet him in Palazzo Lana Berlucchi. So Franco Ziliani, that you can see in the picture on the left, the one with the leaf in the hand, went to Palazzo Lana and met Guido Berlucchi, and by the time he had the occasion to see the soil, to experiment the climate, and to also see the palace and the vineyards of the estate, Franco Ziliani had the idea of trying to make an experiment. So he had the nerve to ask Guido Berlucchi, why don't we make a wine in the way the French are also making it? So he was referring, of course, to champagne, and the 2 of them started in 1955, and in 1961, so after 6 years of trials, 6 years of errors, and 6 years of failure, they came up with the first 3,000 bottles of sparkling wine. That was the first sparkling wine ever produced with the classic method in Franciacorta. So it's officially the beginning of the Franciacorta as we know it today. 1961 marks the year in which the Franciacorta wine was born, and in which the Franciacorta territory started to change to the way we know it today. So it's quite an important year. Also, I think, yes, you can read the label Pinot di Franciacorta. That's actually the first time the word Franciacorta appeared on a sparkling wine label. So it definitely marks the passage between Franciacorta land and Franciacorta wine and Franciacorta method as well. You can see, no, you actually can't see, but the red writing is supposed to be méthode champenoise. And that's because they used the classic method that back in the days was called méthode champenoise. Nowadays we call it metodo classico in Italian or classic method in English, which is actually the same exactly method, just produced in Italy and not in the Champagne territory.
Or just Franciacorta.
Or just Franciacorta, Franciacorta method. Going back to today, of course, many years has passed. Today, Franciacorta is a well-known territory. At least it's well-known in Italy, so hopefully it's going to be quite well-known in US as well, and you're going to help us doing that, my friends. In our timeline, we had some milestones that we like to remember. In 1962, we had the first production of Rosé sparkling wine, produced with the classic method. Not many know that the first classic method Italian Rosé was produced by Guido Berlucchi. It was named Max Rosé because of the friend who gave the idea to Guido Berlucchi and Franco Ziliani, and it's a product that in Italy you can still find nowadays. Then in 1967 we have an important moment because the DOC was born. DOC is DOC, so it's a set of rules that define a specific product. Today we have not only the DOC, but the DOCG as well, so one step forward the DOC. We obtained that in 1995. And when you have this type of denomination, so DOC or DOCG, it means that you can go anywhere, ask for a specific product, in this case a Franciacorta, a glass of Franciacorta, and the person you talk to is supposed to know what you're talking about, because Franciacorta defines with a specific set of rules a specific product itself. So today Franciacorta is a classic method obtained sparkling wine. There's no still Franciacorta whatsoever. And Franciacorta must be obtained with three grape varieties, which are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Blanc. And in 2017, we had a new entry in this rule, so we can also use Herba Mat, which is old and new variety both, because we obtained it by a genetic screen. It was used in the Brescia area, and it's still used today in Franciacorta, but just since 2017, so it's a very, very small amount of hectares that we have planted. And one of the most important rules of all is that, sorry, I'll skip through, is that all the grape used and all the production process must happen in Franciacorta. So Franciacorta is the territory you see, as well as the wine you will drink, and it's quite a small area south of the Lake Iseo. For you New Yorkers, we are in the north of Italy, quite close to Milan, actually in between Milan and Brescia. About 1 hour drive from Milan, for giving you a distance, and it's quite a small territory. The entire surface that we can cultivate with vineyards is of about 3,000 hectares, 2,900 hectares exactly, and the entire production is of 17.4 million bottles. For giving you a comparison, so a meter, we are quite far from Champagne and from Prosecco that you might as well know. Champagne produces about 300 million bottles. Prosecco produces about, actually almost 500 million bottles. So we're talking about a niche territory, a very small production, something that today out of Italy is getting more and more well known, but it's still not quite diffused, and it probably never be as diffused as those other two I have mentioned, just because its production is so small. We just have 17 million bottles, so our shelf exposure cannot be compared with those two sparkling giants. Now, going back to today, I wanted to show you another couple of milestones. In '79, we have the first million bottles produced. So from 1961, 3,000 bottles. In 1979, so a few years later, the production was brought to 1 million bottles. So it's an important improvement in the production setting. In 1995, as I mentioned, we obtained the DOCG. And in 2000, we have the passage to the second generation. So we pass from Franco Ziliani, the man on the left, to Arturo Ziliani, who is, of course, the man on my right. Franco Ziliani, in fact, has 3 children, Arturo, Cristina, and Paolo. And the 3 of them took the lead of the company around year 2000. Arturo takes care of the production, and it's also the CEO of the company, amministratore delegato, AD. And Cristina takes care of the communication, and Paolo takes care of sales and export specifically. This is our company. So starting from just the 2 of them, Guido Berlucchi and Franco Ziliani, so 2 people, 3,000 bottles. Today we have a company of about 100 people. I'm one of the lucky them. And of course the production grew as well to some millions today. This is Franciacorta. So talking about the rules and regulation that makes Franciacorta what it is, we have one of the strictest rules for the classic method production. In fact, if we talk about yields, if we talk about month in the bottle, Franciacorta has one of the strictest rules and regulation if we want to actually label it and name it Franciacorta. And that was a choice. No one obliged the Franciacorta territory to impose such rules and regulation on itself. But since Franciacorta is such a young territory, because we're talking of less than 60 years, actually the 60th birthday is going to be next year. Since it's such a young territory, we needed to have the strictest possible rules in order to emerge. We needed to have a very high quality. We needed to set a very high standard, so to be well known also internationally as something with reliable, good quality. Today in Franciacorta there are 118 producers, which is not an extreme number, but quite a lot. And it's important to be well known outside of Italy as well, maybe not just with the name of the brand itself, but with the name Franciacorta. And it's important for the consumers to be able to rely on the fact that whenever they're going to buy a bottle of Franciacorta, the quality they're going to find inside is going to be a high quality. And in order to do that, the Franciacorta rules and regulation is fundamental. So that's the reason why the standard was set so high, the bar was set so high. So now, going back to Guido Berlucchi, we have seen who leads the drive wheel, who leads the steer wheel, and those are our 4 pillars. So we care about sustainability and biodiversity. In fact, speaking especially for the vineyard and the vineyard management, we decided to apply many standards for biodiversity. we decided to use to plant several essences among the rows in order to have a high biodiversity inside of the vineyard, and this helps us both with the plants biodiversity and the animal and insects biodiversity. In fact, having many plants and not just grape inside of the vineyard helps us attract many insects. Bees are one of the most famous, one of the main exponents of the insects we'd like to attract. The bees are coming back to Franciacorta, and this is thanks to the biodiversity we are able to create inside of the vineyard. No, sorry, I hear a noise. Then we talk about heritage. Heritage is who we are, because we were the first in Franciacorta to produce Franciacorta, so we are Franciacorta identity ourselves. We like to cherish and we like to communicate what Franciacorta is, because we are the pioneer of this territory. Also, we have a great passion for quality, and this translates into our production department in the most practical of the ways. We put a great investments into our presses, a great investments into our production method. There's a lot of research and a lot of passion for quality. So it's not just doing it for making something that we're able to sell, but we do it in the best possible way because we're passionate about what we do. And territory ambassadors, that's because we were the first not the first, but we're among the first to open the doors of our cellar. In fact, in 2015, in the occasion of the Food Expo in Milan, we decided to open the doors of our cellars, and from zero to hero, so from almost nothing to all weekends open, we started having wine tours, and we started to diffuse the word and diffuse the culture of what Franciacorta is. And this in turn helps with the wine tourism, which is growing nowadays, and it's extremely important for the territory, for the consumers, and for creating the connection between those two elements, so between the territory and the consumers. I think we can now, sorry, okay. So this is of course what we do. So cultivation, winemaking, and wine tourism are our three main segments of operation. And while I talk you through those three passages, I think we can start with the wine service. So we are getting ready to the most interesting part, I'm sure. As of cultivation, as I mentioned, we work for biodiversity. That's our main goal in the vineyard, but of course second to quality. All the vineyards were replanted around year 2000, so when Arturo took the lead of the company, he started replanting the vineyards. In fact, one of the main tools for achieving a greater quality is to have a great grape. Today, our vineyards have about 20 years of age, which makes them perfect and mature for the vintage wines as well. When we replanted them, we tried to follow the concept of high quality. So where it was possible, we planted them quite thick, so with 10,000 plants per hectare, from 6,000 to 10,000 plants per hectare, where the soil allowed us to do so. And this ensures a greater quality because the plants compete with each other and their roots are forced to grow deeper in the soil for getting all the nutrients and the water they need. One thing you might not know is that in Franciacorta we are not allowed to water down our plants, we're not allowed to water down our vineyards, and that's because if we had to do so, then the grape might result, not the grape, but the must, so the grape juice might result watered down because the plant absorbs the water we give it And if it's too close to the harvest point, then the must would be watered down. So for having a higher quality must, we avoid irrigation. That's just one of the main rules we have to and we like to follow. As for vineyards, in general, we work with 500 hectares. Of those 500, about 100 belong to the Guido Berlucchi, and the remaining 400 hectares belong to vine growers who deliver their grape to us in the harvest time. In Franciacorta, we must harvest by hand. It's not allowed to use machinery for the harvesting process. And this also ensures a higher quality because our goal is to have the grape delivered to the press in the best condition possible. Presses? No. In little cases, in little crates, you will see them in the picture. They are about this size. I don't know, no, I don't think you can see me in the video, but they can carry about 18 kgs, which in pounds is about 40, I believe. About 40 pounds, because it's about double, but it's 18 kgs anyway. The moment the crates are delivered to our pressing site, we pass to the cellar. So this is where the investment started, starting in year 2007. So first thing, we managed our vineyards, and second, we managed our production process. There were big investments done in the presses. We work with the best possible presses for the classic method production. And we try to separate the must as much as possible because our goal is to reach the moment of the blending, reach the moment of the cuvée with a high quantity of base wines, a high quantity of ingredients for making our cuvée. So we work with still tanks. We have about 300 of them. And each vineyard and each variety, of course, each vineyard and each fraction of the vineyard is kept as much as possible separated from one another. For doing that, of course, we need a lot of room. So our pressing site is huge because we need to have those 300 still vessels, 300 still tanks that allow us to play with the base wine in the moment of actually making the cuvée. Following a timeline, in Franciacorta we harvest at about the middle of August. This year we started the 13th of August, if I'm not mistaken, and we go on for 2 to 3 weeks. Then in the end, this year actually was quite longer. It lasted a month or even more maybe, because it was a rainy year. But in an average year, it lasts about 3 weeks. And after the 3 weeks, we will have in our pressing site, in our cellar, all the still vessel ongoing the fermentation process. This will go on for 2 to 3 weeks again, and then by the end of September to the beginning of October, we're gonna have all of the winery filled up with base wines. So all the juice will be fermented and the winery will be filled up with base wines that we will let sit until the next year. So vintage 2020 will not be touched until March 2021. From January to March, Arturo decides how to make the blend. So Arturo, together with Ferdinando, our on-site winemaker, they will taste all the 300 base wines. Depends on the year, maybe something less, maybe something more. And they will decide how to make up the blend. And then the blend will be bottled together with what you see in the picture, which is the liqueur de tirage, tirage syrup, which is made up with yeast and sugar. The bottle will be corked with a crown cap, and then all the bottles will be taken into our refinement cellars. So this is an underground cellar that we have in our historical site. It's about 10,000 square meters. So we invite you all, also from New York, to come and visit us so you can have a walk in those wonderful historical galleries and see all the many, many bottles that are aging there. In fact, they must age at least 18 months in order to be called Franciacorta. And that's just for the base wines, but we're not going to taste any wine that aged less than 24 months today, for example. After the aging, we are ready to go through the degorgement, and then we will have the bottle ready for actually being put on the market. I see that we're almost ready with the wines here. I hope you are in New York as well. My last note is going to be on the wine tour and education. That's because, as I told you, I think that's you, Arturo. Yes, in the picture. So that's on top is our cellar. We are open all the weekends, and we try to diffuse as much as possible the culture of the sparkling wine and how the sparkling wines are made, what classic method is, what Franciacorta is and represents to us. And for example, just last year, we had over 20,000 visitors coming into our historical galleries. Of course, year 2020 had put an arrest to that just for a few months. We're now open and running again. We have new safety measures, so we wait you all to our galleries. So now I think we are ready, or almost ready with the wines. So I'll leave the word to Arturo.
Thank you, Arianna. Posso alzarmi? I stand up because I want to see you. New York, I can't see, but I imagine. I try to speak English, but sometimes I need help. Okay. So we taste three products, three wines, three Franciacorta wines, very, very different between them. The first two are non-vintage. The third wine is vintage wines of 2012. We start with 61 Brut, non-vintage. 61 Brut, the name of this wine. It's the number 61 that is repeated in the Rosé and also in Nature. 61 is for us, like Arianna said, a magic number. 1961 was born not only Berlucchi Winery, but all the Franciacorta region of Franciacorta wines. So for us, it's very, very important. 61 Brut is a Brut, so it's a little bit dosé. It's a what?
The sugar addition.
Si capisce. The sugar is a Brut. The varieties are two varieties. We have in our vineyards principally Chardonnay, but we have about 40 hectares of Pinot Noir. And in this wine, there are 10% of Pinot Noir. We believe, I and our staff of winemaker, we believe that a little quantity of Pinot Noir give to the wine a good structure and a good capacity of invecchiare, maturare,
of aging.
Of aging. So in this wine there are 10% of Pinot Noir and 90% of Chardonnay. I taste if you want, and you taste also. We go to the left, to the right. So we serve this wine a little bit early, because I believe that the temperature must be cold, but not too cold. I prefer that the Franciacorta wines, the good Franciacorta wines, must be drink not too cold. So in your glass, the wines increase a little bit the temperature. Arianna said that we make a cuvée, assemblage, a blend of many wines. And also in this Brut, there are many wines that is different from vineyards to vineyard, and also fraction. This is a good point of the process of our vinification. In Franciacorta, the rule, like in another land of sparkling wine near here, over the Alps, there are also a rule of fraction, of separate the moment. Now it's difficult. È importante separare durante la pressatura.
So it's important to fraction the moment we press. Let's say we have 1 kg of grape. We can press up to 650 milliliters for the Franciacorta rules and regulation. For Berlucchi, we arrive up to 600 milliliters, so 60%, but those 600 milliliters are not all one thing. We need to fraction them. So the first part that comes out of the press, we call it flour must. It's the highest quality.
We make 4 fractions.
We make 4 different fractions, and this helps us in having more ingredients for balancing out the cuvée in the end.
Right, because every fraction is different. The same grape, but different fraction, different wines. The time of aging of this wine, normally the minimum of law is 18 months from tirage to the disgorging. We use in this wine minimum 24 months. It's a little bit more, but it's good to have a little bit more complex in the wine. The second wine, it's very particular wine because it's a Rosé, 61 Rosé. And Berlucchi have a very good and old experience in the Rosé wine. We produce a Rosé wine that is not, this morning I speak with someone, for us the Rosé wine is not for women, no. Because we want to make a Rosé with a good structure and good body. So for this, we use a very high quantity of Pinot Noir. We use in this wine minimum 60% of Pinot Noir grape. The rest is Chardonnay. And we produce Brut style. So sugar is like the Brut, the first wine. To make this Rosé is very difficult because the Pinot Noir is not pressed like Chardonnay. We take the berries from the grape for a part of Pinot Noir. We take off the berries. We put this berry in a tank, very large and
shallow, poco profondo.
Shallow, sì.
Shallow.
Just for one night. We use the term Rosé di una notte.
One night
rosé,
rosé.
one night rosé. In this night, the temperature is low, about 4, 5, 6 degrees centigrade. In this night, the berries take the color, the smell, the smell of little fruit, red fruit, fragola, strawberry, ribes,
Oh,
but also body structure. After one night, we take this bay and press to have a juice, very colored but very, very rich in smell and body. After we make the blend with Chardonnay to make a rosé that is put in the bottle in spring with the color. It is quasi come lo vorremmo dopo 2 anni, un po' complicato.
Okay, so the moment we bottle the rosé, it's not gonna look the same way as it's gonna look after 2 years in the bottle, and that's because the yeast, so the lees that we use for the second fermentation, will absorb part of the color. So we must foresee the color, the color point we want to reach, and imagine how much of that color is going to be absorbed by the yeast. So we need a great deal of experience for doing that. The moment we bottle it, it's much darker and much brighter. It's almost fuchsia.
Right. You note that the smell is very, very rich in fruit, red fruit. Is not too much strong. It's not too much pesante, heavy. This is particularly thing that I want to
stress.
Is the style of Berlucchi wines. All Berlucchi wines are not too much heavy. We love. I like the elegance, the fruitness, the acidity, the fineness. I like the smell and the taste of grape, principally of grape. So this is important, and we must to conserve what the God give us every year. It's not the same every year, but we try to have a good standard quality.
Well, if you look, you'll see New York.
Oh. Ciao. Li saluto, ma ci vedono loro?
Sì, loro ci vedono. They can see us.
Okay, you see it's not a wine also for cheers or aperitif. You can drink with the meal. For who doesn't know the Franciacorta wines in general, I said always that Franciacorta wines, it's a bubble wine, but for Americans, for example, that doesn't know Franciacorta wines, I said, oh, you can take aperitif with Prosecco wine, it's okay. Or if you want to celebrate important, la laurea per esempio, alla Bocconi.
A graduation.
You can celebrate with champagne. But if you are passionate to the bubble wines, to the quality bubble wines, you can drink Franciacorta wine from the aperitif to the end of the meal. So you can drink and eat with Franciacorta.
It's a good pairing wine, and especially for New York, I mentioned that one of my favorite pairing with rosé is with pizza. So if you ever wonder which wine you can pair with Italian dishes, and pizza, it's certainly the
Very good.
the most well known. You can try it with our rosé.
So now the third wine is a vintage. Is 200 no 2012.
2012.
2012, it's easy. 2012, so it's 8 years ago we pick up the grapes. After in the spring we make we fill the bottle. We disgorged this wine about 1 year ago. 1 year ago. So 12 months after disgorging, and the varieties are Chardonnay, 70%, and Pinot Noir, 30%. So it's a white wine, but with a good component of Pinot Noir to have body, structure, and capacity of aging. I taste. Oh, the smell is more complex of the first one. This the aging with the yeast we can sentirle.
We can smell.
We can smell. And the complex in the smell are fruit matura, ripe fruit. I smell ripe peaches. Si dice peaches? Pesca. Peaches, and also the typical smell in Franciacorta is, come si dice in inglese non lo so, tiglio, non lo so. Fiori di tiglio che diventano tilleul, in francese tilleul, and honey after became like honey.
So white flowers, delicate white flowers. Lime tree. Thank you.
The taste in the mouth is very complex. Acidity is good. The elegance is good. The body is good. It's a good wine. But also this, I don't know in English what means, sapidity, savory.
The salt content.
Salt content.
The mineral salt.
This is very important.
It's a savory wine.
Yes, it became from the origin of soil in Franciacorta, of terreno. Soil. In the center of Franciacorta, you see the map. In the center of Franciacorta, there are very typical soil that adesso qui mi incarto perché non.
Morenic soil.
Sì, spiegalo tu l'origine glaciale.
I'll go back to the map.
O l'hai già spiegata?
No, non ho spiegato. So this is Franciacorta. Of course, the map is not magnified, not too magnified, but the center part where you can see there's a white bubble. The white bubble is Berlucchi, has the Berlucchi logo in it. And around the Berlucchi logo, there's like a green line. The green line that makes up a half a circle, an amphitheater, those are hills. So those hills are amphitheater of morenic hills that originated from the meltdown of a glacier. Franciacorta was originally covered up by a glacier, and in the meltdown and retreat process of this glacier, the Iseo Lake was originated and was formed. In this meltdown and retreat, the glacier left some residues, some minerals on the soil. So what is today the Franciacorta soil is the residues of those ancient glaciers. So that's a morenic soil, and it's very rich in mineral salt, and that gives up the sapidity, the savoriness of our wines.
Yes. And our vineyards for this wine, all this wine, are in the center of this area. And we have 4 vineyards, very important for us, that are planted with 10,000 plants per hectare. So, very, very strict. You have a line of vineyards every 1 meter and 20 centimeters. So very, very...
So the density of the implant is very high.
Very high.
We have 10,000 plants per hectare.
Yes. So with this type of planting, you have less grapes per plant, but you have much more plant. But you have a competition between the plant and the roots. The roots of plant goes in the
go deeper down in the soil.
Che fatica, ragazzi. Bene. No. Thank you, Arianna.
Thank you, Arturo. So now if you have any questions from New York, it's going to be a good moment for sending them through WhatsApp so we can read them here. And in the meantime, if you have any questions here, even in Italian, even also in Italian, we can answer. Yes?
Tutte le vigne che danno origine a quest'ultimo, nature, sono all'interno dell'anfiteatro moresco.
So the question was, so all the vineyards that come up into the blend of these 61 Nature 2012 are contained inside the Morenic Amphitheater?
Yes, I confirm this. And also they are near the winery. Not only in the center of the amphitheater, but in un raggio, in an array of 1 kilometer.
They are all located in Corte Franca, so they are all located in the core and very close to the winery. Yes? So this question, I need to explain. This question was, what's the difference between the first wine we tasted, so 61, and Berlucchi Cuvée Imperiale? So for those of you in New York, Berlucchi Cuvée Imperiale is a very popular product of the Berlucchi brand, and it's the product that actually made the Berlucchi brand so well known, especially in Italy. And we would not export it, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, it's correct? No, lo esportiamo. Okay, so we do not export it, so you won't have seen that in the United States, but it's quite a popular product here in Italy. So the question is, what's the difference between that popular product, Cuvée Imperiale, and Berlucchi 61, the one we have just tasted?
The difference are principally to the selection of vineyards and selection of fraction of this pressing. Plus, Cuvée Imperiale, the quantity of Pinot Noir is a little bit less, and the aging is about minimum 18 months. Yes, Cuvée Imperiale is Franciacorta wines. No, no.
Yes, all Berlucchi sparkling wines are Franciacorta wines, so they all belong.
No, 10
They all
years.
belong to the denomination. And also, if I may add, our Cuvée Imperiale, since it's so widely distributed, has a different goal in its production. So it's supposed to be easy to appeal, and it must be relatable. So we try to have a taste that through the years remains pretty much the same and is the typical celebration wine. So it's something our customers have learned to love and appreciate, whereas the 61 is more tailored to aperitif, to the pairing with food, the pairing with, with restaurant dishes. So also in their construction, Cuvée Imperiale is a little bit more ready, and this one is a little bit more targeted for pairing with dishes.
I forget the sugar.
The sugar level of
I
the
said
three
that,
wines we tasted?
Yes, the first wine are Brut, so they are between 6 and 8 grams per liter. It depends to the acidity of year. The last one is non-dosé, no sugar. Sugar is 0. And the name is Nature. Ah, no, non mi vedono tanto, non mi inquadrano. È Nature.
It's the one you have on the sheet.
Nature, that means for European law, nature is like dosaggio zero, zero dosage, pas dosé, the same significato, meaning. We choose nature also also because we try to make in the bottle the taste of the Franciacorta, the taste of the Franciacorta purity of Franciacorta. So the taste of Franciacorta is this.
So you have Franciacorta in a glass.
The atmosphere, the air of Franciacorta.
The air of Franciacorta. We have 3 questions from New York. The first one, I apologize. I had to look up what the meaning was. What percentage of soil is karst, che è la percentuale di suoli carsici? None. There's no karst soil in Franciacorta. The second is, what is the next project for the wines in the future? I progetti per la cantina e i vini nel futuro.
Project for the future. There are many projects, but it's a secret. But
Stay tuned.
Every year we make some experimentation in the cellar. We try many things. Sometimes this experimentation goes well, because the wine is good. Sometimes it's not interesting. You know that it's important to know that in our process of production, first we fill the bottle and after we taste the wine. It's different from red wine or white wine that we make aging in the tank or in the barrels, and after we fill the bottle. In our world, it's a little bit complicated, because you make in a bottle a wine and you taste wine completely different from what you make in the bottle. So many times our experimentation doesn't work. We make in the vineyards many things to see the future of sustainability.
Sustainability.
We use, for example, agronomic, organic viticulture, but not only organic or biologic, like say in Europe, but also many experimentation of
New
pratiche,
approaches, management.
ancora più sostenibili del semplice
So we're
biologico.
trying to be even more sustainable than just the organic approach. We're trying new practices. We are followed by the University of Milan, Università degli Studi di Milano, and we try to undertake all the projects that are following the direction of a higher sustainability, higher biodiversity, and our protection of our vineyards.
Yes, last thing that ci tengo a dire,
That I'd like to say.
yes, is that Franciacorta wines are in general, not only in the Berlucchi winery, but in general, are year by year with less sugar. So because the weather of Franciacorta is good for wine without sugar. So for me, the future of Franciacorta wine are non dosati or nature, but also this wine, the sugar year by year goes
Lower.
decrease.
For the Brut, for labeling them Brut, we must have a sugar addition between 0 to 12. Those are already on the low rate because we are between 6 and 7 grams per liter, and year by year they are getting even lower. We have another question from New York, which is, sorry. Please describe the 2012 vintage and why was that an exceptional year to make a vintage? Quindi l'annata 2012, com'è stata?
Oh. Calda? Ti ricordi tu?
È la mia prima annata.
Ah sì? Anche d'estate?
Io
Anche
ho lavorato, ho fatto solo vendemmie.
So
It
Arianna,
was my
Arianna
first vintage,
makes
so.
harvest in 12. So it was a little bit hot harvest. Also in the spring, it was a little bit anticipate flowering, and
So the life cycle of the plant was a bit anticipated, the flowering.
yes, and during the harvest in August was a little bit hot. This is.
So it was quite a hot year, and the question was why was that specifically good for make a vintage? Quindi come abbiamo fatto a fare un millesimato nell'annata?
Oh,
Potremmo chiarire che lo facciamo.
well, yes, we must say that every year we make a vintage wines because our vintage represent, for example, this vintage is we produce about 50,000 bottles, and all production is 4 million bottles. So the vintage wines are a little percentage. We make every year the vintage wines, but we can change the quantity of this vintage. This is
And also we can change maybe what vineyards go into the vintage.
Yes and no. Normally we have some vineyards that are dedicated in general to vintage wines, but some vineyards are, because some vineyards are the percentage of the every vineyards are different year by year. Yes. Yes, yes.
There can be exceptions, yes.
In the wine production, there's no receipt because we have a majority stakeholder that is in
The
the
Lord.
sky. It's the nature. Every year, it's different vintage.
Okay, so there are no more questions from New York. Do you have any other questions here from Milan? No? So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Grazie Arianna.
Grazie.
Sei
Arturo.
stata la mia salvezza.
Oh, we have New York connected there. The camera is there.
Ma ci vedono? Ci vedono? Allora.
Cheers.